Farzy, we were just down in Erie for the second time in 2 weeks, and you know why the food just tastes better in Erie?
The Grease?
No, in the
Oh,
wise words of Gilbert Gottfried, food always tastes better when someone else is paying for it. That was a little Sherry Bassin. I tried a Gilbert Gottfried. I couldn't get it. But rest in peace to Gilbert Gottfried. That's all I had to say.
well done. Very timely. And I was going to say the same thing. Was that Gilbert Gottfried or was that Sherry Bassin?
It was more so Sherry Bassin, I think. Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried. I don't know if I could even do it justice. I don't think anyone can they?
No, I don't think so. He was a unique character and he was his own character. And yes, RIP after a long illness to Gilbert Gottfried. And it's funny, you do the Gottfried / Bassin impression. We should give a shout out to our colleague in London, Mike Stubbs, who calls games with Jim Van Horn for London radio. A couple of the best. We love them. You know, we love everything about going to London except the games, because they usually go the wrong way depending on which team you're calling the games for. Anyway, love those guys. And Mike was listening to our broadcast, I guess, from Erie on this past Monday night. And we were replaying that Sherry Bassin part of it anyway, the Sherry Bassin podcast. And Mike knows what's what in this league. And he knows how, I think, important a recording that is going to be many, many years in the future, because Sherry has been in this game a long time and he's an absolute certified beauty. So Mike sent us a message enjoying the stories with Sherry Bassin. If you haven't heard that podcast yet, holy Hannah, you best get yourself back and check out OHL Stories with Sherry Bassin.
I was thinking about that actually in the shower today. Maybe TMI, but I was like, how do we get more people to listen to that episode? Because it was so good and Bass has so many good stories. And he just went on and on and on and on and on. And he's been around for just so long that those are the type of interviews that we love, because we really get the history that, say, 20 years down the line, when Bass is no longer with us and you and I are maybe out of the league, other people can still go back and hear the OHL history that Sherry Bassin told so perfectly well on this podcast in the past.
Yeah,
so it was great to talk to him.
I mean, I know it's our podcast, but I hope the sense from the listeners, because my take on it is really what we're doing here is an audiobook of Ontario Hockey League history, right? Because get the beginning like this, where we're going to talk about what's going on in the league in the moment, but then the guests that we bring on are going to tell stories from sometimes many decades in the past. So it's pretty cool, and hopefully the listeners are getting that same reward, if you'll call it that, from this.
It really is the story of the league, and we've had guests in the past that have talked about some of the positives, and we've had guests in the past that have talked about some of the negatives. And here we are again, 2022, dealing with some more negatives in the Ontario Hockey League.
That we are. Before we get to those, because that's a really nice tee up for the things that we have. One of the things certainly we have to talk about here, but there's a story within the story of this podcast that I think we need to acknowledge. So first of all, thanks to Vince, who sent an email to farwellandpope@gmail.com and said, hey, how about Vince is listening from St. Catharines. Love that. Always let us know, by the way. farwellandpope@gmail.com or @_Chris Pope on Twitter, @Farwell_OHL on Twitter. Where are you listening from? Who do you want to hear from? And Vince sent the email to farwellandpope@gmail.com, said, hey, how about somebody from Niagara Connections? With Niagara Connections, we had the Flyers twice, we got the Thunder, we got St. Catharines Teepees, and we could go on and on. So it's funny, without talking to each other, Poper and I had the same idea. We found Jason Clarke, and you look at Jason Clarke's hockey DB profile, and you're like, this is a guy we got to have on. Former Niagara Falls Thunder. I was about to call him a Flyer. Sorry, Clarky. Former Niagara Falls Thunder, and racked up almost 500 PIMs in one season. In fact, later in his pro career, he did get 500 plus PIMs. We're like, this is the kind of guy that's going to have awesome stories. So we both find out from each other that we had started down this path. And I'm like, Opie, don't worry. I'm a step ahead of you. I must have started looking 12 hours ahead. Already tracked him down. He used to coach a team, the Capital City Canadians, up near Ottawa, and now he's coaching out in the Q, and it's going to be awesome. And so I reached out, and Jason Clarke was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to come on the podcast. I'd love to tell some stories." And so the second email to just firm things up, and I said, "Okay, well, here are some of the stories," because he had asked, "What do you want to talk about?" And I said, "Well, here, let's talk about this, and this." He's like, Oh, well, that's the wrong Jason Clarke. So the Jason Clarks, both with an E on the end of their name, born a year apart. But the Jason Clarke that I first touched base with is now coaching with the Acadie-Bathurst Titan and gunning for first place, I might add. And then there's that other Jason Clarke. So what you're getting in this podcast, the long story before the stories, plural, is you're going to hear from both of these guys. The Jason Clarke that played in the Ontario Hockey League and the Jason Clarke that played in the not Ontario Hockey League, but is now coaching in the Canadian Hockey League. And so from Jason Clarke, the coach, you're going to get basically like a coach's clinic. He's got a really interesting perspective on the game. And from Jason Clarke, the player, oh boy, are you going to get some stories about, well, maybe a little bit of a dark side, certainly some cautionary tales. But anyway, this is your bonus. That's why it's called OHL Stories with Jason Clarkes, because there's more than one. And they've both been mistaken for each other before, and they were both great about it, which is kind of awesome. So Vince, you're getting 2 for your money here today.
I also just want to point out that maybe also just be a quick lesson to anybody who wants to get into broadcasting. Sometimes you find the wrong guy. Well, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. We all make mistakes.
It's true. And we have had guys say, sorry, not the right Chris Pope. But in this case, it's so funny. And we both looked like, this is the guy you got, right? Yeah, this is the guy I got, because it just makes sense. That would be the trajectory, right? Out of the Capital City Canadians, and then off to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Not the case, but you're going to get to hear from them both. And I think you'll really enjoy stories from both guys. So all of that said, to your point earlier, Chris, and it stays in the same region, let's stick with that, in the Niagara region of the Ontario Hockey League and the Ice Dogs organization. And oh boy, 3 years removed from having been sanctioned by the league for recruiting violations and a $250,000 fine and the surrendering of some draft picks, the Ice Dogs are in perhaps the hottest water that they've been in yet. And by the Ice Dogs, I mean the Burks, who are the owners.
Quick note that this podcast is brought to us by Waterloo Crime Stoppers. And that's exactly what David Branch did when he suspended both Burks. Fact. I've said it on air, and I'm sorry to farewell anyone else who was listening to our pregame show the other day, but you might hear the same thing here. I just think that we all know this is just the tip of the iceberg. If they're talking like that in a group chat, what are they saying when they're alone? What are they saying to their players? What are they saying routinely around those offices? There is a laundry list of reasons why they shouldn't be in charge. We've had players go in there and say, trade me, I'm not playing for you anymore. They dressed 16 players once this season. 8 of them were rookies, 4 call-ups. They've had players in their organization in the past that have reportedly been told they're being traded, only to find out that they're not being traded. They've had rumors of reaching out to players on other teams saying, we're trading for you, and then not trading for them. There are plenty of things on the hockey side alone that probably show you that they don't belong in this league. But when you talk like that, there is zero place for it in this league. I said on the broadcast that if a player were to say the things that they said, I would give them a longer leash, just because the players in this league, 16 to 20, the emotions take over on the ice. Sometimes I understand it. I don't think there's a place for it in the game. They should be suspended. They should have to go through treatment and education to become a better person. But I give them a little bit longer of a leash because they're not mature enough at that age to be in the same position that the Burks are. These are role models for the players on their team. They're role models for people in the community. And I'm sorry, but to be a part of the greatest junior league in the world is a privilege. And when you're continually talking like that and using the words they used and over a highlight video, like what happens when they lose a game or they get a bad call? What are they saying then? This is over a highlight video. I think both Burks and that statement that they released, absolute garbage. I'm just going to say it. Like, it's absolute garbage. They basically said, well, we didn't say anything racist. So that makes it better. If you rob a bank, do you say, oh, I didn't murder anybody? Who cares? You did something wrong. Own up to it. It says a lot about them that they didn't just own it. And I don't know what you can say if you own it, because there's no reason for it. There's no explanation that you were talking like that. The fact that they said it in a group chat with the team members and members of that organization, I can't imagine what some of the people in that organization are feeling when they feel that they can't speak out against that with fear of repercussions. And luckily someone leaked the chat, and David Branch did the only thing David Branch could do, and that was get them out of this league. And I think the league is better off for it, because they have to take a long look in the mirror and try to figure out what kind of man they are.
So this WhatsApp chat that was leaked, I'm sure you all know the story by now, contained both a homophobic slur and extremely derogatory, misogynistic language towards women, some of whom are members of the Ice Dogs organization and were part of this chat that got leaked. So again, to your point earlier, Poper, if this is what they're saying on a chat, who knows what they're saying away from the chat in the heat of the moment in a game, and so on and so forth. And you're right, again, the statement that was issued afterwards was incredibly bad. Like, it just took a bad situation and somehow made it even worse, because the argument or the defense seemed to be, well, we didn't say anything racist. So you checked the misogyny box, you checked the homophobic box, but you didn't check the racist box. So we're supposed to give you some kind of pass. 2-year ban. The Billy and Joey, we should be clear here, the head coach and general manager, minority owners, are not eligible for reinstatement until June of 2024. And it's another $150,000 in fines on top of the $250 from just a few years ago. So it's been an expensive run. But to your point on the role modeling and the privilege that it is to be in this league, and you and I talked about your position earlier, where you're going to give a player a little bit more leash, and I see where you're coming from on that. What's important for me to take away from this is that these guys are, to use your word before, and I think it's a fair word, role models. They are managers and leaders in this game, in the greatest junior hockey league in the world. And they are making it okay for this kind of language to be used, for people to be treated in this manner. And it is a problem within the greater hockey culture that we have to root out. So I'm glad that David Branch is doing this the way that he has. I think he's come down as hard as he possibly can. And I hope that everybody around the league, players right on up through staff on teams in all 20 Ontario Hockey League markets, are taking notice, because we do have to root this out from the ground, so that 20 years from now, we're not having a conversation about somebody saying anything even remotely close to this. Kudos to the person who leaked the chat. Everything we've been hearing since its release is that what we have seen is only the tip of the iceberg. It's incredible to me the number of people, and they're not exactly wallflowers, who have come forward to talk about other things that happened to them when they were interning with the team or in any way associated with the team. It's a really ugly look. It speaks to the character of the individuals, I'm sorry to say, and we'll see where we're at in 2 years' time. But I think the league has handled this as best it could, and I think it's now up to the rest of us to recognize the message that was sent by the league in terms of what is and what is absolutely not okay, and to be better as humans, as hockey people moving forward.
Yeah, I think we'll see where we're at in 2 years. We're going to be at this exact same spot, and that is with them not in the league. I don't think they're ever going to find themselves back in this league, unfortunately. For them, fortunately for the culture, to be perfectly honest, because listen, this league, as I said earlier, there's some black eyes on this league in the past. We don't have to talk about them. Everyone knows about them. We hear them on the podcast from time to time. We know the issues, but you can't just allow them to come back in 2 years because they took some courses. They're throwing you can play nights in Niagara and then turning around and talking like that in a chat. So clearly the education that is going into these organizations in the league isn't hitting home. And there needs to be something done about that. And I think there will be in the future at some point, because the scathing article in, I think it was the Globe and Mail, about the culture of hockey and the Burks and the CHL. And I even think about Rachel Dury, I think is her last name. I follow her on Twitter. I'm not sure the pronunciation, so I apologize to Rachel if I said it incorrectly. But
with the Canucks now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said that she went for an interview with the Burks and they didn't like her saying that she wasn't going to work for free. And then they called her a derogatory word towards females as she was leaving. Like, how does that happen? And how does it continue to happen? But that's part of the article in the Globe and Mail, and something that this league is continuously trying to get out from under is that iron curtain over the league. The shh, don't tell anyone it's happening. Throw your you can play nights, but then say whatever you want in a group chat. And the league is doing things, and certain teams are doing things to get away from that, be more transparent, and be more, what's the word I'm looking for? More 20th, 21st century, because like it's time that we all get better. And it's time that we all, think about the words that we're saying and how they affect other people. And clearly the Burks haven't matured enough to understand that.
Yeah. Let's all be a little bit more enlightened, shall we?
Enlightened's a great word. Thank you.
Out of the dark ages for sure.
Hey, right, just for the record, I got work to do too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not standing on my high horse here. Okay. We can all be better. Like, we can all be better. But have I used words like that in the past when I was younger? Absolutely. But I've learned to grow, and I understand that the words I say to someone they can hurt that person, and they can hurt them deeply, and it can be a life-changing experience. I've learned that. They obviously have not.
Yeah, let's all be better. It's a great way to look at it. And we all have grown and still have room to grow some more. And again, I hope the message being sent from the league here is strong enough that the rest of us are taking notice of where we're at as people. And again, specifically because it's a problem within the culture of the game as hockey people. The other big story we get to talk about this week, which I'm really excited about, is far more uplifting. But just before we get to it, Popey, do you keep like a dish of keys? Like when you come home, is there like a dish for car keys by your front door by any chance?
There's not a dish, but I have a little hanger on the wall. We got all of our car keys up there, and there's like 20 keys, but yes.
Interesting. Okay, so just a little, call this a public service announcement. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but I've heard these stories about the car thieves are getting pretty smarter than the people I think we just talked about with a certain hockey team in the OHL. But they have these devices that they can come up to the front door of your house and open your car, because whatever it is they've got can pick up the signal from your key fob if it's too close to the door. And then all of a sudden they've got your car opened and started, and they're taken off in your car, and they never even have to go into your house, or they don't have to have your keys to do it.
I just like to correct myself. My keys are nowhere near my front door.
Yeah,
they are in the back of the house, in the fridge.
Until I saw this story, I had an old coffee mug. It was a big thing, like a soup mug, more like it, and it was sitting by the door. And I've moved it now because I don't want to. Listen, if they want my car, they can have my car. But I just want you to know that this is the sort of thing that happens, and because of that, here's a great opportunity that we are able to present to you, because that's the kind of guys we are on the OHL Stories podcast. You heard Poper already mention that our partner on this podcast is Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers. And next Saturday, so not the Easter weekend, enjoy your long Easter weekend. And then the following weekend, on Saturday, April the 23rd, a Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers event is happening at the Tim Hortons out in the Deer Ridge area of Kitchener, right there along King Street East. And at 10:30 on Saturday, April the 23rd, you can be there. Regional Police will be there, Waterloo Regional Police, for those in our immediate listening area. And they're going to be selling key fob signal blockers. So if anybody ever tried that, they wouldn't be able to get the signal from your fob to get in your car when you're not there, which, as you know, is pretty handy. For $20, you get this key fob signal blocker, and you're supporting the work of Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers. If you didn't know, it's volunteer run. They've got a volunteer board. Everything they do to pay out the money that they give away for people that provide tips that lead to arrests to solve crimes is all fundraised. So there's golf events, there's things like this on Saturday, April the 23rd. So just wanted to let you know that for $20, not only are you getting something that might keep your car in your driveway and your valuables in your own possession, but you're also helping out Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers. You can find them online at waterloocrimestoppers.com. And on April the 23rd, it's a Saturday morning, 10:30 at the Tim's in the Deer Ridge area. Join them for the key fob signal blocker sale, and you're helping support the work. Oh, by the way, if you see a crime in progress or you have a tip that might help lead to an arrest, 1-800-222-TIPS.
And, out by that Tim Hortons on Deer Ridge, there's a lot of hotels out there. Will those hotels be filled at one point with junior hockey players from, say, Slovakia or Czech Republic or Czechia, pardon me. See, learning.
I like the way you led into this. And I would also throw out there a beautiful couple newer hotels in the Woolwich Township area. That's where we're at when we're in St. Jay, right?
Yep.
Anyway, in the Woolwich Township area of Waterloo region. So we had this conversation in the media room before a game not too long ago. And what we're talking about is the bid that the city of Kitchener and the city of London are working on jointly. That's right. Kitchener and London working together, pretty awesome stuff, to perhaps bring the 2023 World Junior Hockey Championships to those two junior hockey markets, London and Kitchener. So think this coming Christmas, essentially, the tournament that we all love so much could be played in London and Kitchener. Now, you brought up the hotels because this was part of our argument. And look, I'm a Kitchener kid. I was born and raised. I'll put my city up against any city in the country and in the world. I love the city. And I think that as a city, Kitchener, no offense, London, Forest City, you're just fine. But when you look at the accommodations, when you look at the transportation networks, I think the city has more to offer. Reality is, of course, when it comes to the biggest of the big games, so the gold medal game will be almost certainly competed for at Budweiser Gardens in London, because when it comes to hockey facilities, as much as I love the Memorial Auditorium as an arena, and maybe even as a hockey cathedral, you can put more bums in more seats, and you've got all the nice bells and whistles, and it's shiny and new in London. But the beauty of this joint bid is that the centers are so close to one another. There are 4 other joint bids, including Ottawa and I think it's Hull, Quebec. Like, think of how far apart these other centers are that are putting in bids. There are a couple out west and one down east as well. And I think the closest is the down east bid, where the centers are 3 hours apart. You're talking an hour and 15 minutes door to door. Like, I mean door to door. City to city, you're like an hour on the 401. But you can go from one arena into the other arena in an hour and 15 minutes. So that means even if the gold medal game is being played in London and you're living in Kitchener, you're still an hour and 15 minutes from having your bum in the seat at the game for the gold medal final. So I think this market, these two markets together, make a ton of sense. And I really, really hope that Hockey Canada sees it the same way.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think both those two markets, they give you a little bit of everything when it comes to the OHL and junior hockey. I think you have, as you put it perfectly, the hockey cathedral of the Memorial Auditorium, and then you have the little Scotiabank Arena down in London. So you
Nicely put, yeah.
Right. So you get a little bit of both. And I think that those two markets alone, you're talking about two of the best junior markets in Canada, not just Ontario. We're talking two of the best junior markets in Canada going together, only an hour away in southwestern Ontario. How do they not win? Like, I truthfully don't know. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, there's no way that they can't win, right?
Well, this is, I mean, again, you talk about southwestern Ontario, and I start thinking about a few things. So one I'll mention right away, and as we all know, in the past 15 years, the two cities between them have hosted 3 Memorial Cups, and very successfully. The City of London is just coming off hosting a Brier. Southwestern Ontario, everybody remembers the 1990 Memorial Cup between Oshawa and Kitchener. It was played in Hamilton, and Copps Coliseum, which it was then called, was sold out. Why? Because everybody can get there. So Oshawa's coming in, Kitchener's coming in. Think of that 2011 final that we talk about so much, when they were referring to the Hershey Center, what it was called then in Mississauga, as the Bayshore South, because you could probably, like, you might as well have made it a parade. All the people coming from Grey County making the 2.5-hour trip to Mississauga to watch their beloved Attack. Fans, just think of the catchment area of junior hockey mad fans in Southern Ontario that are within easily 2 to 2.5 hours of either London or Kitchener. I honestly, based on that alone, I don't know how this market doesn't get it.
Yeah, and you think of all the scouts around the GTA, 2 hours, you're out of game. If you want to go watch a game in London, you're an hour from the States if you go across Sarnia, you're 2 hours if you go across Windsor. It's really, you can't lose. I really don't think there's any other bid that could come close to Kitchener and London going in together for it. And I'm with you. I think London will get the A pool, and then Kitchener will get the B pool. Regardless, it's the best junior hockey players in the world playing in Kitchener and London. And I think if you can showcase both those markets, how do you not?
Yeah, I had a chance to check out some of the games in 2009 when it was in Ottawa, and I saw one Canada game and then a handful of other games. But it's the World Junior Hockey Championship. You don't mind going to watch Sweden play Finland or whatever might be the matchup. And don't forget, yeah, if there's a game that involves Canada or a team or a player that you care about, and you're not in the market where the game's being played, again, it's not far away to get to the other market. So I think it's great. Finances are obviously going to be a factor here, but what's happening is, as you probably know, is that the championships were to be played in Russia. They've been removed from there. Hockey Canada, it's not even that these markets, the 5 that are putting in bids, decided themselves they wanted to bid for it. Hockey Canada went to them and said, what can you do? Like, put together a package, and by the way, put it together quick. We're going to know by the end of this month, probably even sooner, who's going to end up as the host, because they've only got 8 months now to pull this all together. So there's going to be some, I can say this much from what I've learned from talking to people around this. Let's just call it some wiggle room. You and I have talked before, Chris, about the Memorial Cup and how some markets don't even bother bidding on it anymore because there's such a financial commitment that must be made by the host city. They say, we're going to guarantee the CHL this much money and then hope to make more so that they don't lose money as a market and as a host. I can tell you in a high level way, that's not going to happen with this. Nobody's going to be, well, the only entity eating some money on this is going to be Hockey Canada, but they can't have it in Russia, and they want to bring it back to the grassroots with a junior hockey market. So again, I think London, Kitchener, bring it on. There's no reason I can see that it shouldn't be here.
Completely agree. Ready for a guest?
Absolutely. Guests?
Guests. First up is the Jason Clarke we got second.
We thought we were getting poor Jason Clarke, the coach in the queue. He's such a good guy too. Anyway,
Jason Clarke 1 was a member of the Niagara Falls Canucks and then went on to a long pro career, as Farwell already alluded to. Yes, he was a fighter, and he talks a lot about how that has affected his life in his later years and even his relationship with his children and their love of sport. And then we get to Jason Clarke 2, who was gracious enough to join our podcast, even when we mistaken him for Jason Clarke 1. So to Jason Clarke 2, thank you very much. Keep things going with the Titan, and we hope to see you in the Memorial Cup in the near future. But here is our OHL stories with Jason Clarke's for Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers. Make sure to head down Tim Hortons, Deer Ridge on the 23rd at 10:30. Get your key fob blocker.
I got to tell you, as we start, Jason, this is a bit of a backstory here, but a roundabout way of tracking you down, because I thought I had tracked you down only to find out that the Jason Clarke, also spelled with an E, currently coaching in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, is not you, but the two of you, like, still involved in the game and born a year apart. And does it happen to you before?
Everyone thinks it's me and everyone thinks him is me. So it's kind of vice versa all the time. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's weird, and I've never met him before. I've never met him, and I've talked to him on the phone, but other than that, never met him. So yeah, it's kind of weird like that for sure.
Has this been going on for a while then?
It has. It's I tell you, probably since I quit playing hockey, everyone thought I started coaching, which I did, but not at the level that the other Jason Clarke is doing. So yeah, it's like I live in Quebec City. I'll go to the game. They said, well, how come you're not coaching? You're supposed to be on the bench. I'm like, well, that's the other one. There's yeah, it's vice versa. So it's and the emails I get too for the people that want to play for my program. So yeah, it's funny like that though. It's okay.
I like this shirt, but I don't think Farwell and I can support the hat you're wearing for our YouTube viewers.
Oh, my tent. Yeah, I love my shirt too. It's
yeah, it's a nice shirt.
Yeah, for sure.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unfortunately, you have the wrong quarterback. Chris is a New Orleans Saints fan. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so you can understand why we might have an issue with that.
For sure. And I don't really like football. I jumped on the bandwagon when Brady went there. So before I was a Patriot fan, now I'm a Buccaneer. So I won't lie.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Jason, what was it like growing up in Coburg?
It was fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great little town on the water. I'm sure you guys know where it is. And, growing up just playing double B hockey. You know what I mean? I didn't play all-star hockey till I was in Pee Wee. My parents really didn't have the money for it. And I didn't really, I played to play with my buddies. And then after that, it just happened to be one of the Bantam teams needed a defenseman. And they called me up and, the rest is history. Went on to play there 2 years of Bantam and 2 years of midget, and won the All Ontario 3 years in a row in Coburg, and ended up getting drafted in the OHL, which I didn't even know what the OHL was really in Coburg. I knew who the Peterborough Petes were and Oshawa Generals were, obviously being from that area of Belleville Bulls. And like I said, playing double B was never even my imagination to play any hockey past midget with my buddies, and then go work in the factory with my dad or my mom. And like I said, getting drafted and fortunate enough to play as long as I did it's pretty amazing.
So when you reflect on that OHL experience, your first taste was just 4 games before you spent the rest of the season with Lindsay. But what was it like stepping onto the ice in the Ontario Hockey League with a team that you'd never even heard of prior to that? But when you get into that league,
like, it's funny, like when it was my draft year and I started getting calls from OHL scouts, I'm like, well, I don't know how do you guys know who I am? Like, we played in a double B, some we're playing like Baltimore, we're playing Port Hope, we're playing all these little towns. And then I actually, at my draft year was at St. Mike's Arena. And I was supposed to go the night before and talk to teams, and I did. And I talked to the Kitchener Rangers, North Bay. I never ever talked to Niagara Falls. It was after all the interviews I had, I personally thought it was going to be Kitchener or Oshawa that was going to pick me. And then I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden, Niagara Falls Thunder picked me in the 4th round. So it was like, oh wow, okay. I didn't even know, I knew where it was, but I didn't even know they had a team. So, you know what I mean? And then, come to the first training camp, you had Brad May there, Manny Legacy, Keith Primo was there out for the year, my first year, and Andy Bezo and some big names were there. And it was pretty amazing. It was a really, a big eye opener to go there. And I went to camp there. I didn't train. I didn't do nothing. Like I said, I was a kid from Coburg, had no idea what junior hockey was about. And so I went there, I didn't touch a weight all summer, just skated a couple of times. I went to camp, and it was an eye opener with George Burnett there, and doing the bench press. I think I did the bench press like 5 times, maybe. Like 135 was embarrassing. And so like I said, then they said to me, go down and work in junior B and Lindsay, and work hard and get in the gym and practice your game, because I was never really coached in Coburg. Their mom and dad's coaching, and my brother coached me 1 year. So, it wasn't as if I had training, up until like the guys that play AAA in Toronto and all the big organizations. I just happened to, for some reason, catch the eye of the OHL, and very fortunate to play in the best junior league in the world. And like I said, going to Niagara Falls, and the experience I had in Niagara, great people, great arena. Like I said, the teammates were great, and like I said, I couldn't ask for any more, for sure.
185, you said, on that bench?
No, I don't even think it was that. I think it was like
No?
135. Yeah, it was 135.
Okay.
It wasn't something. Yeah, it was terrible. I think I did 5 max, and people are looking at me. I don't think I did 1 chin up. So it was, like I said, I did nothing in the summer because, like I said, I was really unaware of what junior hockey was, coming from Coburg, and what it took to, get drafted and be there. And then another thing is to stay in the OHL as well. So I learned really fast, and I had some good teachers in junior B, and was fortunate to play with Jason Arnott my first year in junior B, and Lindsay, and I was his protector on the ice, and I lived with him in junior B, and we became great friends. And he tried to pull me to Oshawa when he got drafted from Niagara, but that didn't work out. But like I said, he really helped me a lot. Arnie did in Lindsay with his play, and he was such a good player at a young age, and knew the hockey. He was well beyond his years with his knowledge of hockey and the way he played it. So it was so easy to play with him. And like I said, I think I had 60 or 70 points in 300 minutes in junior B my first year. And then I was fortunate to get called up for the 4 games in Niagara. And like I said, I just really wanted, after being in junior B, I wanted to be in the OHL, seeing what it took to be there, and the level of compete that really intrigued me to be there. And like I said, it was phenomenal, for sure.
You mentioned that you were his protector. You played with a little bit of an edge, let's say. But you did 5, a little bit. the 5 reps the first year, how many did you do the second year after your year in junior?
You know what?
B?
I actually hired, my parents hired me a personal trainer, and I had a boxing coach and everything in Coburg. So I think I went up to like 2025, and then I actually did like 15 pull-ups where I couldn't even pull myself up the first year. So like I said, it was an eye opener. And like I said, coming from Coburg, we Steve Smith is from there, played for the Edmonton Oilers. And then after me, obviously Justin Williams is from Coburg as well. So like before me, there really wasn't anyone to tell me what to expect in the OHL or what to expect going into camp. And like I said, I walked in and, there was no ice, and they had all the training stuff on the old Niagara Falls arena. And I was like, what is this stuff? And like, I got to the bench, I was like, oh no, I'm going to kill myself here. So like I said, I went to junior B, worked hard, and then that summer worked extra hard as well.
So you get into this league, and as a protector, ran the numbers. They're not too hard to put together. 131 OHL games, 528 OHL PIMs. Suffice to say, you weren't afraid of anyone on the ice?
Well, for sure. You know what? Anyone to say that they're not afraid of their fighting is that they're lying to you. It doesn't matter if it's a small guy, big guy, or whatever position you're in. It's never comfortable to fight. I don't know too many people that are comfortable with the fighting on the ice. I never was. I did it because I knew that's how I would stay in the OHL and play in the OHL. And then obviously after the OHL came my pro career. But like I said, it was installed in me. If I wanted to play, I had to play with an edge. And so I did, and like I said, when it came down to it, I would fight anybody and protect my players, or, Todd Simon was on the ice. We had to protect him, or whoever else was out there. So I do my role, my first year, what it was going to be, for sure.
Obviously you didn't know much about the OHL, but in that first year in junior B, did you know you were going to be a fighter in junior B?
When I went to camp, they told me that I wasn't the best skater and things of that nature. And, basically the staff told me if I wanted to play at that level, that I'd have to bring an edge to my game. They tell me I had to fight. No, but, back then, what an edge was, you know what I mean? So, when I went to junior B, and like I said, coming from Coburg, I never fought once on the ice. We had our full cages on and things of that nature. So going to junior B, and then, we take our helmets off to fight. And for some reason, I ate it up. I loved it. The fans would cheer me, and it just kind of grew from there, that I came accustomed to, okay, this is my job, and this is what I have to do to play junior B this year. And this is what I'm going to have to do to be an OHL player as well. So, and there was a lot of tough guys in back then in the days in 91, 92, 93. When I played, there were some very tough guys like Potomsky in London. And I think his name was Chris LaPuma, that played for Kitchener, the defenseman. Had some big battles with him, and he was a tough guy. And, Dennis Bomby and Matt Johnson and Peterborough. So you had some pretty tough kids, not kids, but guys back then. And you had to learn to fight pretty well and look after yourself, for sure.
You talk about those fans in Niagara Falls, Jason, and I think we mentioned this in the email when we first reached out. You are here by request of fans of this podcast and the Niagara Falls Thunder. They're like, you got to get a former Thunder on here. You got to get a former Niagara Falls player. How did they take to the team, and particularly a guy that played the way that you did?
Playing in the Niagara Falls is, I don't know, I can't speak for any other place, but it was incredible. Like, we were taken care of so well. The ownership was great. The fans loved us. We'd go to restaurants, we'd eat for free, whatever you wanted. They embraced it. It was a small rink. Excuse me.
Are you a popular guy?
Yeah. It was a small rink, like the old Boston Garden. It was people didn't like to come in there. You had myself, Dennis Maxwell, and running around there, Tom Moores. It was a small rink that we had there. So it was like I said, Niagara, and the area is great for itself too. You have the falls there and everything that went around with it. And like I said, great teammates, and it was an unbelievable place to play, for sure.
Had you been to Niagara Falls before as a kid? Because going from Coburg and walking into Niagara, I'd imagine you're like, what is this place?
Oh yeah, I remember going to see the falls because I used to play soccer, and we used to go to New York to play. And so we passed by the falls, and like I said, I'd never really been there. And you're right, going there the first year in camp, I was an eye opener. Like I said, there was 14, I think we had 14,000 people in Coburg. And going into Niagara Falls, I remember driving through Toronto and going down to QEW, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, And like I said, it was a big change. But like I said, when I got there, my billet family was great. Coaching staff, everybody was great. They welcomed all of us. So it was a good experience.
You played for a guy in Niagara Falls who is still in this game today. Both Popey and I are big fans of George Burnett to this day. And I can only imagine that you were just the kind of player that George liked to have on his team. But what was he like as a head coach?
You know what? He helped me become a player, a complete player. You know what I mean? Like he's one that, I had to play with an edge, but I had to play the game as well. And you're right, for George still to be coaching now in Guelph is a testament to how many years he's been around, because usually coaches are 2 and 3 or out or whatever. And the longevity of George to be still in the OHL, like I said, at this level is something to speak of for him. Like I said, he's a hard coach. Like, when it came time to curfews and things of that, he was tough. You know what I mean? We needed that, because obviously being in Niagara, you go across the border and come back. And so it was, the bar situation was right there. So, but as a coach, his X and O's, he taught people how to be better people on and off the ice. And on ice, obviously spoke for himself. Like, he worked with all the players, and we had Randy Hall as an assistant coach here with George in my first year. And like I said, it was George is a great teacher, and that's why he's still in the game now.
Coming into the league, you just said that you didn't know much about it. Was there anyone on that Niagara Falls team that kind of took you under their wing?
You know what? Brad May did. In my first training camp, I think he kind of knew my role, and honestly didn't know who Brad May was. I had no clue who he was, couldn't tell you. So, going into camp, and everyone's like, Brad May this and that, and then drafted by Buffalo. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of who I like. So my first training camp, I stayed with him and Andy Beazle at their billet, and Paul Louse was there too. I forgot another one. And so yeah, Brad, helped me out a lot. And like I said, it was funny. He was playing for the Vancouver Canucks, and I was actually a doorman in Montreal. And he happened to come in the bar that I was working at. And my owner come and said, hey, the Vancouver Canucks are here. So I'm like, well, I know one. I'm Brad May. So I went right up to Brad, and we talked pretty much all the night, and hadn't seen him since I was in Niagara Falls. So and sometimes I see him on Instagram. We talk on the Instagram and things of that nature. So yeah, like he's a genuine guy. Like he's a great guy, Brad. And like I said, for what he done in the NHL and OHL as well, speaks volumes for the type of guy he is as well.
I knew him for 3 minutes. We crossed paths at one point in our broadcasting careers, Brad May and I was going to bring it up because he came across to me, Jason, as like one of the nicest humans you'll ever want to meet. What was he like as a teenager?
Unbelievable. He's the same way. Like, I don't think he's changed. Like, he's genuine. Like, my nephew saw him my nephew still lives in Coburg, and he went to some thing in Whippy with the Hockey Ally. Frady was there, and Brad May was there. And my nephew Carter went up to him and said, hey, my uncle's Jason Clarke. And right away, yeah, I play with him in Niagara Falls. And it's like, the guy played how many years in NHL, won Stanley Cup. And, he doesn't have, how does he remember Jason Clarke from Niagara Falls? You know what I mean? Like, it's, like that, but he does. And that's the way Brad was. And I remember him in camp, that he was hello to everyone, welcome, everything, and the same as Keith Primo. He didn't play there, but, Keith was at the meetings and stuff like that to introduce Niagara Falls and what was about to be a Thunder, because he played there. And he was the same way. Keith Primo was, welcoming everyone. If you have any questions, let me know. But for me, Brad May was really the guy that I wanted to be after meeting him, and the personality and just the work ethic, to see Brad after practice, like on the bike, like religious on the bike. Like, we would get bag skated and he would be on the bike. It wouldn't matter. He'd be doing the weights. So I saw that, and that's how I wanted to be, because, Brad May's a great guy to follow for sure.
You also played with Ethan Morrow. He was a pretty good looking kid back then. Like, I'd imagine this like blonde hair, chiseled jaw surfer dude comes in. I can only imagine some of the guys are like, who is this? And then he goes out on the ice and he's Ethan Morrow.
Exactly. He's 6'3" or 6'4", and he had the mullet haircut, the long mullet. And the girls really took to him in a hurry at Niagara Falls. He didn't have any problems in that department for sure. But again, Ethan was a great guy too. My first year was his first year as well, and him coming in from Aurelia, he was, a small town kid too. We didn't really know. And they said, once he got on the ice, you're right, he was electric. He was hands down. You knew he was going to play in the NHL. And like I said, and another great guy, like a great teammate to play with.
Your first full year in the O, Jason, you and the Niagara Falls Thunder went to the conference final versus they were a massive team at the time, running their little dynasty up there in Sault Ste. Marie, but nonetheless, that's who you run into in the third round. But what do you remember from that playoff run?
I just remember being terrified of Chris Simon on the ice. I remember this is a great story. We were playing, he was in Ottawa, and Dave Babcock, or I think it was Dave, our defenseman, was chirping at him, and Chris Simon turned around and two-handed him in the mouth and knocked all his teeth out. And myself and Dennis Max were yelling at Simon, "Hey, you're lucky you don't play us again. We're going to kill you and all this stuff. We're going to fight you." So then I think it was like a week or two later, he got traded to Sault Ste. Marie in our division. So I remember coming to the rink and Maxie said, Dennis and me, "You know who got traded?" I'm like, "No, yeah, Chris Simon just got traded to Sault Ste. Marie." I'm like, "Oh no." And I think we played him like that weekend. So we're going into Sault Ste. Marie up in the Sioux, where the old barn, and you got Teddy Nolan there, probably one of the best coaches ever coached too. Then you got Chris Simon, you got Brian Gowdy, you got some, Tony Yob up there. You had some big guys, and you're going in there, and I'm like, oh God, Chris Simon's got the long hair, and he's like ready to slap shot. He looks like he's going to kill you. And I'm like, I remember him running around, and I'm like, I'm not fighting him. And Dennis, we're not fighting him. Forget about it. Yeah, it was, like I said, we ran into a hot team. They had, Ralph Intranuvo and those guys there, and Colin Miller was there, and it was a good series. And like I said, it was a hard series, but like I said, probably the best two coaches that ever coached in the OHL, with Teddy Nolan and George Burnett, for sure.
Certainly up there. That final year for you, almost 5 penalty minutes a game. Were you fighting every game?
Pretty much. Like after my first shot, I had an agent, Gus Badali, who was the same guy as Wayne Gretzky and all those guys. My parents went and got him, and they said, if you want to, get drafted, then, you got to put an edge. And so I did. I started running around, and I didn't win every fight, but if people wanted to fight, then I'd fight. And, George gave me a role on the second line with Dale Junkin and Todd Wetzel. And we had a shutdown role most of the time. And, one of my claims to fame is I shut down Andrew Brunette on his point streak. George Brunette told me before the game that every time he's on the ice, you're going on the ice. And I'm like, with Andrew Brunette? He said, yeah, every time. So it was in Niagara, and lucky enough, he didn't get a point. So I shut him down for I think it was a point streak or something. And like I said, we were putting in roles like that. But like I said, it was, like I said, OHL was probably one of the best times of my life, coming from Coburg, for sure.
I wonder remember Burnett had like a 60-game point streak. I wonder if that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, I stopped it. I'm the one that stopped it that year.
60-something games.
Yeah, and he came in, and I remember and we had a morning skate, and George said, you're going to shut down Andrew Brunette tonight. Every time he steps on the ice, you're going. Don't care if you're with Todd Simon, if you're with Tom Morris, whoever you're with, as soon as he's on the ice, you go and you stick with him. So he was getting ticked off of me. He was slashing me, and he wasn't like, I was in his back pocket. I wasn't. Even if he touched a puck, I was hitting him, cross-checking, whatever I could do, so he didn't get a point. Like I said, fortunate enough to shut him down off that incredible streak he was on.
You mentioned the name Gus Badali. I wanted to ask about a little further, because obviously synonymous with many greats in the league. But how did you end up with that connection and with him as your agent?
You know what? He came to a game when we were playing Newmarket. And after the game, somebody said Gus Badali won it. I'm like, who the hell is Gus Badali? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know who he is. You don't know who he is? He has Wayne Gretzky. He has this guy. I'm like, wow, okay. And my parents just happened to be at the game. So Gus pulled us aside and talked to my dad, and said, we'll work out the figures, but I want to represent your son. And my dad's like, for what? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know anything, like, why do you want to represent me? I have no idea. And like, so from that day on, he represented me, and I didn't get drafted, but I was fortunate enough to sign a contract, like a pro contract with Boston, to try out and played a couple games exhibition, and then ended up playing pro from there.
Who do you remember from your time in Boston?
Well, biggest guy was who I still live. He lives 15 minutes from me, Joe Juno, here in Quebec City. Dave Reed was there. Obviously, Ray Bork, Cam Neely. Our goalies were Vincent Riando and John Blue. John Casey was there. I remember doing fitness testing with John Casey, and he was smoking darts on the bus going to the training facility. I think he had like 5 or 6 kids. He just looked like he walked out of bed, and he was like, I'm not doing any training. And like I said, he was smoking darts on the team bus going to the training. So it was pretty cool. But like I said, in training camp, obviously Cam Neely was a big fan of mine. I knew who he was, and he was really great with the rookies. And like I said, Hines was there, Darren Banks, Mark Major. So it was a pretty good time. I played against the Hartford Whalers and the New York Islanders in a preseason game.
That's pretty sweet. I remember Joey Juneau. I was a huge Joe Juneau fan, but the big long flow at the back, he was nasty back in the
He
day.
still has it. And like where my son goes to school here, it's a program called the PDHE, which is Joe Juneau's program. And it's all through Quebec City. And Joey, I see him all the time. He's about 20 minutes from my house. And he comes on the ice and I go on the ice to help my son a little bit too. And yeah, it's his program. So he hasn't changed. He's got the long flow and the goatee. It looks exactly the same. He hasn't aged.
That's awesome.
Preseason exhibition or not, playing NHL games versus the Hartford Whalers and New York Islanders. What were those experiences like for you as a kid from Coburg?
Well, again, like I said, we didn't play in the big rinks. We played at Old Avon Farms in Connecticut against Hartford. And yeah, I fought 2 times. I fought Howie Rosenblatt and another guy there. And but I said, like, I got the Boston Bruin jersey on and my name on the back. And then we opened up the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany against the Islanders. And Kasparaitis was playing and things of that nature. And like I said, coming from Coburg, that was good enough for me. You know, I mean, I didn't think did I think I'd get out of junior? No, I didn't. And then going to Boston's camp and then them telling me to go down the East Coast League and play a little bit. And I ended up playing, 15 years in the East Coast League or 10 years and over 1,000 games pro. So, like I said, I exceeded my expectations of what I was planning to do. I didn't plan on making a living. I thought I was going to work in the factory with my mom at Kraft or my dad in Port Hope, and that'd be the end of it. But like I said, I was fortunate enough to play over 1,000 games in a bunch of great places. And yep, someone was looking out for me for sure.
You say over 1,000 pro games and a lot of it in the coast. It's not easy on the body. It's not easy on the mind. Was it tough or was it something that you really enjoyed and you didn't mind?
You know what? It's kind of a double-edged sword. I loved it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was a fan favorite and, see my first year, I had 500 and some minutes in penalties. And so I was loving the lifestyle, but now I'm paying for it. Like there's a lot of things, we didn't know then that we know now about concussions and things of that nature. And, back then, East Coast League, we're on a bus. So you'd play Friday night at home. And when I was in North Carolina, you'd bus all the way down to Florida for a Saturday game. Then Sunday, but you're back home. So you're on the bus 9 hours, get off, go to the hotel for maybe 4 or 5 hours, eat, play the game, back on the bus. And it was nonstop, and like I said, back then, we were going down to Fort Myers, Florida to play, Erie, Pennsylvania to Mobile, Alabama, and it was all by bus. And we didn't have sleeper buses back then. We had regular coach buses with either a trailer on the back or your equipment underneath. And it was, like I said, the reason why I did it is because I saw how hard my mom and dad worked at their factory jobs to make half of what I was making, doing something that was fun and people that were, making us be rock stars. The towns we played in, we were the gods and we were eating for free and everything that came along with it. So when I came home in the summer, see my mom and dad working 40, 50 hours a week for what they were making and trying to, survive like that. And I was thinking, I don't want that lifestyle. So that's what I continued to just push myself to play every year. Cause in the coast, it was year-to-year contracts. There weren't 3-year deals. There weren't 2-year deals. It was 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. So like I said, I was fortunate enough to be in a role where teams needed me. And, like I said, played 1,000 games is pretty remarkable.
You mentioned those PIMs, and it's hard to not notice them when we look at the stats that you put up year over year. And I think it was Roanoke where you got pretty close to 500. You had 491 the 1 year, and then a few years later with Verdun, you eclipsed the 500 mark. I wonder if that was a goal of some sort by you to come in and say, I want to get 500 PIMs 1 year.
You know what? It never was for PIMs for me. It was just, I wanted to go out there and put a show on for the people and the fans. And, that's how I knew that I was going to stay playing. Like the fans love me. I had my jerseys everywhere. And like I said, I remember playing in Roanoke, Virginia. I couldn't go out. Like I would go to the mall and people would recognize me. And to me, like, again, coming from Coburg, like who cares who Jason Clarke is? But you go down to the places I played, like Mobile, Alabama, like Mobile, I was best friends with Paul Bearer from the WWE. I was with him all the time. He came to the games. I went to shows with him and we created a bond for 2 years that I was in Mobile. And like I said, it was like just a relationship I had with him. Like, just things that experiences I incurred through my career. Like, I think that was probably one of the best ones in Mobile where I played there. Like I said, like Paul Bearer wanted to meet me because of who I was. And I'm like, I know who this guy is. Like, this guy's bigger than life, like with the Undertaker. And so, like I said, I told the story to Sean McMorrow there. the one practice that our general manager came down and said, we have a big WWE guy that wants to meet you. And they didn't tell me who it was. Perfect. I'm a huge fan. So, I was skating around doing warm-ups and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden I seen this huge figure appear we had a big draper. We came out and he came out and was right against the glass. And there it was the Paul Bear. And he opened the door and I skated off. I didn't even practice that day. Jeff Powell said, just go talk with him. I went and had lunch with him. And from that day on, Paul and I, he passed away numerous years ago, but I talked to him all the time. Like I went to shows with him. And like I said, he gave my family tickets to wrestling shows and just things like that. I think I'll take away from when all this is over, like when, all the hockey is said and done, the things I did, but that was probably one of my favorite things.
You have a good Paul Bear impression?
I don't. And everyone asking that, but he used to come in the room and do the starting lineup. Our Jeff Pyle was a coach. And sometimes if we were winning and we had some good records, they would say, let Paul come in and do, and he'd come in and do the spooky voice and do all the stuff. And yeah, he was large in life. And he was, like I said, he was in his prime back in Raw and all that stuff. And he was, like I said, he came in the room and everyone was his friend. Like he shows everywhere I went with. I went to New Orleans with him, Pensacola, everything. And I still talk to his son to this day. So
I'm curious what life was like in Mobile, Alabama as a hockey player.
Yeah. I went there from, I believe, Birmingham, Alabama, or no, I got traded from Roanoke to the Birmingham. Then went to Mobile, but all I knew was Mardi Gras was originated from there. So, how could, the fans be any good, or what is it? So like I said, the first game there, it was sold out. There was 9,000 people against Pensacola. And I mean, it was loud. It was incredible. For someone, that you're right to think about hockey in Mobile, Alabama, like you're thinking, it's football, it's high school football, it's whatever it is, but they love their hockey down there. They absolute people, the ownership was great. Like I said, the rink was packed all the time. And again, we were treated like rock stars. It was a great time to be a player in the East Coast League at that time, for sure.
You mentioned, Jason, your parents and the blue collar jobs that they had. You thought you'd end up working in the factory too. And then what do you end up doing is playing 1,000 pro hockey games, making more money than they were making in a year working in that factory where you thought you might end up. But and though you played the game in a blue collar way, I wonder what they thought of what you were doing. Instead of going to work in the factory, you're out there skating around.
Well, my mom was always, whenever I got in a fight in the OHL, she would get up and go out of the arena. So wherever we play, like she would come to Kitchener, go out wherever we were playing Peterborough, Oshawa. And as soon as I dropped the glove, she would get out of her seat and go have a cigarette or go outside. And they thought it was a strange way, because again, the knowledge of hockey for us in Coburg with my family was, we didn't know the knowledge of it, what it was all about and entailing. They thought it was a strange way to make money, but then, they saw that I enjoyed it. Like I would come home in the summertime from the States and, be home for 2 or 3 months and then go back down and play. And then I started playing professional roller hockey as well in the summer times. So sometimes I wouldn't even come home. So I would just stay down in the States and play, ice hockey, then roller hockey. Yeah, it was, they thought it was a strange way to make a living, but, my dad loved it. My brother loved it. And like I said, yeah, I thought it was a strange way too, but it was fun.
Your mom must have spent a lot of time outside of the arena then.
She did, and she got her big winter jacket on and things of that. And like I said, yeah, it was, my mom was my biggest fan. Like I said, she was always yelling at me not to fight. And well, I remember one time I got in a fight in Peterborough, and I forget who it was, but I had a great big shiner. And it was right after the game, she saw me, she started crying. Okay, that's it, you're quitting. And George Burnett came over and talked to her. It's okay, it's only a black eye. Like my mom thought it was the worst thing ever. So first time she ever saw me with a black eye. So it was fun. But like I said, she came to most all the games she could around, especially around Oshawa, Peterborough when we came down there to play. So
you mentioned Dennis Bonvie. That's a big name when it comes to, tough guys around hockey. Is he the toughest guy you ever fought?
I never fought Dennis Bonvie.
Oh, no?
He was in the other division, North Bay. And, I fought, I guess the biggest guy I ever fought was Donald Brashear in the League North American here in Quebec. I fought him when they were in the lockout. I fought him at the Coliseum, Quebec, and there was 14,000 people there. And I fought him, and probably the hardest ever been hit by anyone. And it was something I wanted for my, my legacy or whatever it may be of who I fought. You know what I mean? And like I said, yeah, in our division, I guess the biggest guy I ever fought was Barry Potomsky. I fought Brian Gowdy. But Potomski, I guess, was probably the biggest guy in London to fight there. And then they had Eric Cairns in Detroit, but I never fought Eric Cairns. Probably too big and out of my weight class, Eric Cairns was. But then again, you had Matt Johnson in Peterborough. So there, like I said, there were some big names, but you're right. Bombi was probably him and Matt Johnson had some epic battles during my time. And like I said, those two were probably the biggest names.
I watched that Brashear fight. It didn't look like he caught you clean though.
Oh, he caught me once in the side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had like a Fred Flintstone on the side of my head for a week or two. Yeah, it was, he hit me pretty good. Yeah. It's, but like I said, he was so imposing, and he was, in the top 5 NHL heavyweights at that time. And, just when I grabbed him, and you just feel the strength difference when I was to what he was. And I was just like, you know what, just do what you got to do. And I'm doing what I'm got to do. So let's, like I said, I think it went pretty well for me being a guy just playing in like pretty much a senior league, fighting a top 5 guy in the NHL.
What was your approach to fighting in hockey? Because I think a lot of people forget when we talk about it, and some people get excited about it, and some people clutch their pearls over it. But there's an art attached to this. Like Wendell Clark, for example, was a guy that went in and tried to get punches in really quick and then sort of hang on. What was your approach?
You know what? Just to survive. Because every fight is different. I wanted to, my mindset was I didn't want to hurt the person, but I wanted to do my job. I never wanted to hurt anybody. I wanted to make sure that my job was done, that if they ran Ethan Morrow or Junkin or Wetzel, whoever it may be, that they wouldn't do it again, or, skate in front of the goalie. Like, how much the game has changed from when we played in the 90s to it is now. Like, going to the Quebec Rampart game here, people, they stop right in front of the net and there's nothing done. Well, back when we did, if you did that, you're getting a cross check from Manny Legacy, you're getting this and that. So my mindset was just basically like just survive and make sure that I did my job. There wasn't, I wasn't a technical guy because I really didn't know how to fight. No one taught me, and I was self-taught and watched it on TV. And you're right, Wendell Clark was my biggest guy. I love Wendell Clark, last name. I wanted 17 in Niagara, but Todd Simon had it, so I ended up getting 24 with Bob Probert. So, those were my guys back then when I was playing, was Wendell Clark and Bob Probert.
Those are two pretty good guys to look up to, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about how you mentioned Sean McMorrow. I'm assuming you were on his podcast.
Yes, I was. Yes.
Yeah, we had him on here. Did you play with him or against him at any point?
I played against him in the Quebec Senior League here. And like I said, he was just brought in to fight on the weekends and things of that nature. And then I was doing boxing shows, and that's when I first met Sean, was when we did a boxing show together in Quebec City.
When you were in the Ontario Hockey League, and you've touched on, that great series against the Sioux where you come up short in your first full year, Peterborough, et cetera. What was your favorite building or your least favorite building to play in on the road? Least
favorite would have to be the Sioux, for sure. I hated that. And I think the favorite one was the Joe Louis Arena when we played CompuWare, or the Junior Red Wings at the time. It was the old barn. And I remember the first time we played there, we were stuck in a snowstorm. So we were late getting to the game. And so we didn't have a chance to see anything. And Detroit was practicing the time we were supposed to be there. So I was all pumped to see Bob Probert and stuff like that. And we got there just in time for the game, and we passed in front of the locker room. And we got to check in the locker room a little bit. And like I said, they had a big crowd there too, because they had a bunch of star players playing for, Todd Harvey was playing there. Pat Peake was playing there at that time. And they had a big, following there as well. So I think that was probably my favorite rink to play, was the Joe Louis, for sure.
I'm jealous you got to play in Joe Louis. I'm a huge Red Wings fan.
My brother is too. He came to the game. It was his claim to fame that he watched me play at the Joe Louis. And like I said, they were in our division. So we played them, I think, 6 times at the Joe Louis. So it was pretty cool.
You went over and played in Nottingham. What was it like over there?
You know what? Again, speaking with Sean McMorrow about that, like, it was a great experience. Like, they had a brand new facility, held 17,000 people right beside the Nottingham Forest soccer stadium. So it's kind of like a complex kind of deal, just up the road a little bit. And fans were crazy. It was, they were chanting all game. It was, like I said, coming from the States, playing hockey there, I didn't think it would be that big of a difference, but it was a lot tougher than I thought it was, playing on the big ice surface. And there was a lot of NHL tough guys. Like, we had Barry Potomski, Dodie Wood on our team. And then we had Paul Cruz, Paxton Schulte, a bunch of NHL tough guys playing over there. And it was surprisingly really good hockey. It was a great experience to go there. That's probably one of the things I'm glad I did.
How did you know when it was time to hang them up?
when I had trouble getting out of bed and having headaches, with the concussions I had, and just a sheer, like I said, I still have trouble today. I go to therapy for it with my headaches and aggravation and the things that go around with the concussions and my back and my neck and things of that nature from the wear and tear, obviously from, the buses, the planes, and, over many, many years of what I did. And yeah, it's like I said, I have 2 young kids now, and it's some days are struggles and some days aren't, it depends on the day. And like I said, I have a good supporting cast with my wife, and my kids understand what I went through and what I'm going through. They, like I said, they've come to a couple of therapy sessions with me and to see what it's all about and explain to them what I go through on a daily basis with, like I said, the headaches and the memory loss and the things of that nature. So it's, like I said, I couldn't do it alone, and I have a great supporting cast for sure.
It's good to hear that you're, treating it and doing well. Like hearing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a name. I don't know if you'll remember him, Joe Hawley.
Yeah. Peterborough Pete.
Yeah. You played with him at one point. I work with Joe. I just was curious if you had any memories of Joe Hawley.
I really don't. I played with him a short time in Charlotte, my first in the coast, and then I got traded 10 games in. But I remember him clearly from being the Peterborough Petes, and yeah, he was a good guy for sure. But I don't really have any memories of him for sure.
Speaking of good guys, I talked to a guy who you only played with for 2 months, but he said he won't remember me, but I remember him as a great guy, a great teammate. Tell him that someone who only knew him for over 2-month period says it was a pleasure to play with him, and call him, all capitals, a great teammate. Was that something that you took pride in?
I think so. I didn't want any enemies when I played. I didn't want on my team. I wanted to be a team guy. I wanted to be involved with everybody. Obviously there's some cliques with this and that, but I kind of really didn't have enemies with anybody that I played with. I wanted to be a team guy and know that, if you needed something, I'd be there. And if, on the ice, obviously they knew that. And yeah, I took pride in that, I don't, for sure some people don't like me and some people do, but I think the majority like me for what I did for them. And I am gracious for what people did for me as well when I played in the O. And like I said, or even pro, it's a great thing to hear. I take pride in that for sure.
You played with, in the Ontario Hockey League anyway, the last team to be in Niagara Falls. They had a couple of kicks at it, and since '96, the Thunder have been no longer, and Niagara Falls doesn't have junior hockey right now. Does that make you sad? Do you think the market could, have another team at some point?
I couldn't believe it, honestly, when I went down the States and heard that they're leaving. Because when I was there, the fan base was so good, and everybody wanted to play there. Like I said, it was a little arena. We were treated very well. My second year was Larry Marzin's. He was a coach, Larry Marzin, because George went to Cape Breton. And Larry was a great guy too. They had great coaching staffs, and I was really surprised. I think that's one market today that could still, down on Clifton Hill, right at the top of Clifton Hill, we played, and you come out of the rink, the lights and everything was there. It was like I said, I was pretty shocked when the team moved or dissolved, and for sure, I think that team would do good there for sure.
You've mentioned the LNAH that you played in Quebec a while. That league has a reputation that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm curious, towards the end of your career, after you've done the pro thing, why go to the LNAH?
It was the money. The money they offered people was ridiculous. I was making good money in England, and they pulled me away from England to come play there. Paying housing year round, giving you, and I'm not going to say the money, but an insane amount of money per game, and giving you jobs and things of that nature. And that's why we went there. I probably made more money in 5 years than I did probably my whole career in hockey in the East Coast League. So it was that's the only reason I went there. It wasn't because of the hockey or whatever, but like I said, the money they were throwing around at people was just ridiculous.
Listen, if you're a hockey player and somebody's going to pay you that kind of dough to play the game, there's every reason to say yes to it.
Well, they're pulling guys out of the American League to come play there because they're making more money in the League North American. Like Brandon Sugden, he was playing in Syracuse or I think Syracuse, and they gave more money to come to Laval. So that's, and he's making probably 60, 70 grand cash playing in the League North American. So it's, yeah, you get to the end of the career and you did all the things you needed to do. And like I said, the money was there. And my first year in Verdun, we happened to win the championship, and they gave us great big gold rings, diamonds in the rings, like real professional rings, everything. And the owner paid for everyone to go down to the Dominican Republic for 1 week, everything paid for. We got to the airport in Montreal. He gave everyone an envelope, $500. Here's your spending money for the week. Have fun. And we went down there. We were treated like royalty. It was just, like I said, the ownership down there was great. Like our guy was Michel Larondo, and he owned all the ice cream businesses in Montreal. And so he gave anybody that wanted a job, you go on the back of the truck and work all summer long if you wanted to. But I chose I was a doorman down on Crescent Street in Montreal for 2 years, and I enjoyed that stuff. So that's what I did.
Okay, just to follow up on that, on the other end of the spectrum, and I don't want you to, necessarily slam anybody, but what was the complete opposite of that experience with all of your stops through the pros? What city were you playing in where you're like, oh, geez, like this place is held together with like Scotch tape and paper clips?
You know what? Probably Anchorage, Alaska was up there.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the Aces. Yeah.
Yeah, I played there. I think I was there for a month. I was actually playing in Texas, and I got a phone call from Walt Podubny, and he was coaching up there, and he says, "Hey, do you want to come play in Anchorage, Alaska?" And like, it's 105 degrees right now. I'm in just outside of Fort Worth, Texas. And again, he threw the money at me, and I was on a plane that night, and I got there, and like I said, I got there, and there had to be 20 feet of snow. It was minus 50. I was like, what am I doing here? Like, it was just, that was probably the only place where I thought, fans were great. Everybody was great, but just, I think the whole surrounding it was a miserable time just because it was so cold. You couldn't do anything. And like I said, you had to go outside like it was minus 50. You couldn't do anything. So it was like, and it was only like, I think it was like 10 minutes of daylight per day because we were in the daylight saving where it's dark all the time. So it was pretty depressing. Yeah.
I thought Farwell was going to ask about Walt Podubny.
Well, I got excited when I heard the name. I mean, that's a pretty good name to drop.
Well, Walt, you know what? I obviously knew of him. I was a huge Leaf fan growing up, and obviously Walt Podubny. And he called me, Jason Walt Podubny. I'm like, Walt Podubny, a guy from the Leafs. And he said, yeah, I played for the Leafs. I'm coaching and general manager for the Anchorage Aces in the West Coast League. Do you want to come play? I'm like, oh. And he said the number, and I said, yeah, I'll be on a plane. So I was on the plane at Dallas right to Anchorage. So yeah, it was pretty cool getting off the plane, and he was at the airport to meet me. Had his long hair, and yeah, he was a good guy for sure.
You mentioned you're from Coburg, obviously deep roots there. A good friend of yours, Brendan Karen, went through some stuff, and you helped his family out. Do you mind telling that story?
Yeah, growing up, I was good friends with Brandon. I played minor hockey with him, and I would go to his house after games, and he'd do the same thing with me, and I became good friends, and kind of went apart when I played junior and stuff like that, and didn't really connect with him a lot. And I was actually at home here in Quebec City, and my dad called me and said, remember Brandon Karen? Yeah, for sure, I remember. And he says, well, there's been a big tragedy with his kids. We're not sure if one of them are dead or both of them are dead, or something really bad has happened. So I tried to find out as much as I could. And I got a call from my brother who knew one of the policemen and told me what happened. And like I said, yeah, it was a tragedy what happened to, his kids. And like I said, his daughter is, going through therapy now, and she's coming around to, walking again, going to school and hanging out with friends. And, obviously Cormac passing. And I have a good friend with Wingman Sports that does a bunch of apparel and jerseys. And I just came up with, everyone does t-shirts and things of that nature, but Cormac, I talked to a lot of people about Cormac, and everyone said he was just like me. He was a defenseman, not the best skater, not the best shooter, loved his teammates, loved to go to the rink. And that was me when I was growing up. And he wore my number 17. I wore 17 all the time. And Cormac was 17. So I just tried to think of something that, we could always remember, because, a t-shirt will fade away, someone will throw it away. And so I thought about, let's do a toque, and I thought maybe we'd sell 50, 100 toques, whatever it may be. But the people that came out and bought toques, like celebrities, I think we ended up selling over 500 toques for Cormac and to raise money for the Sick Kids Hospital. And like I said, Brandon Cairns, I met with him last summer. First time I've seen him in a long time. And it was like I never missed a beat with him. His family is so wholesome and genuine. His dad, they couldn't thank me enough for what I did. But I told him, I didn't do this for my recognition or anything. I would hope that if something happened to my family, that we would do the same. That, hockey is such a tight community. And like with the Bronco team there, I was good friends with Darcy Hogan, the coach. And I had actually spoke to him that day before he got on the bus. And we all know what happened with the Broncos that day. And I still had the voice message on my phone and all of his text message on the phone, because Darcy was a great guy, and the tragedy that happened with them, and I helped them with their t-shirts and stuff like that. But with Cormac, it was so close to home. And like I said, if it happened to my family or any family in the Northumberland region, or any, that it just, I think it makes you feel, because it's like Brandon said, he would go to the hospital and he would see these doctors and nurses wearing that too. So it just wasn't a Coburg thing. It was everywhere. We're like, we had hats in Spain, Italy, England, Florida, everywhere. It was a well-known thing. And that's what we want to do. And I'm working with the grandpa right now to see what we can do about the school bus situation. Because last summer, my son almost got hit by a car in front of my house. He didn't stop for the bus. And if the bus driver didn't honk the horn and my son wouldn't look up, he would have been hit by a car as well. And so we're kind of putting some stuff together where we can go to the provinces to see what we can do to make these kids safer when they, go into the buses and getting to school and getting home from school. And I think it's a big thing that I want to work with now with everyone, is that we got to make sure that our kids are safe when they leave our door. Obviously we know what happened with Cormac and his sister. The kid didn't stop and hit both of them. And, we're lucky to have one of them still alive. And like I said, I think there's so much more that the government and people in general can do to make these buses safer and everything safer for our kids going there, for sure. Because like I said, I saw it with my own two eyes. And if that bus driver didn't hit that horn, my son would have been hit as well. Maybe not like what happened to Cormac, but he would have been hurt badly. And like I said, I spoke to the police, I spoke to everyone, and they're all in agreement that something has to be done. And I know that, with Cormac, what happened, that I certainly want to make certain that something gets done for sure.
Well, you were doing something right if you were able to sell toques in Florida and Spain. Also, that story about Darcy Hogan gave me chills. Oh my gosh.
I met Darcy through, I sent him a couple players, and about 2 years before that, and we became great friends. We talked on the phone all the time. And like I said, I have on my phone, I won't erase it. Some of the things that he said were so touching, and like, I've never met the man in person. I talked to him like this on the phone and not through my iPhone, and we connected. It was a bond that we had. And like I said, he called me the day of getting on the bus about a player. He says, listen, I'll give you a call after the game. And then I saw on the news that there was a horrific bus crash, and I received a call from one of the people from Humboldt and said that Darcy had passed in the accident. And like I said, again, we know what, with the buses that we all drive on. And again, it's a big thing that I'm trying to spearhead with buses, with everything. It's such a dangerous, as soon as we step on as a junior player or whatever pro player, our hands are in the bus driver's life. So there's so many things that we need to do to make these things safer. Like I said, for sports, for school, for everything. School buses are a big thing for me now.
Sticking with buses, but on a lighter note, you obviously rode the bus quite a bit
over
your career.
I lived on it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Did you ever find a good way to sleep on a bus?
No, there's no such
No,
thing.
you know what? Back then it was so you try to put your feet across, and the guy sitting beside you would kick your feet. Then some of us got smart and put sleeping bags on the floor, but we'd get stuck between the seats. So there was never really and I was never a guy that could sleep sitting up. Like, I could never ever do that with a pillow. The guys could do it, but I could never do it. So no, there was never anything. And like I said, from junior all the way up, there was nothing we could do.
It's funny because Chris doesn't travel with me as much anymore. So there's always a seat empty next to me. The guys love it because they can get their feet across the aisle and they can have Pope's seat, which is fine. But that sleeping on the floor still happens too. And I'll never forget the time that I try not to make the trip to the back of the bus if I can help it, no matter how long the roadie is. But I remember walking back the one time and I stepped on a kid on the floor. I'm like, what are you doing down here?
Oh yeah. Some guys get the foam mattresses or the foam rolls and put it out there. And like I said, coming back from the Soo in North Bay or up in even London from the Falls, we had to get some sleep in because you had school the next day. So yeah, it was you find a way, but like I said, it was tough for sure.
Farzy doesn't like to go to the back of the bus, Clarke, because he's scared they're going to do a hot box.
Yeah,
he wants to stay.
That's another issue.
I know we've kept you, so it comes to this point of the podcast where Farzy normally makes a joke about me having a last question. I'm just curious, with the way hockey treated you and gave you a life that you didn't think you had or were going to have, are you encouraging your kids to play the game?
I'm not. My son, he's a soccer player. He plays right now, like for the school team. He thought it was cool because dad played hockey and stuff like that. I've never shown him videos of me fighting. I don't want him to see it now. He's 9 years old. He kind of knows because his buddies tell him, what I did and stuff like that, and people around town. But yeah, he wants to play this year. But like I said, he quit when he was 6 till now, and I never forced him. It was the same thing with me. I quit when I was 7 till 10. I didn't want to play hockey anymore. My dad put the stuff away. That was it. And then I played soccer and baseball, and then my buddies started playing again, so I wanted to play with my buddies. Kind of the same route my son is going now. But I would never force him. Like I said, I'm thankful for what hockey gave me, but I'm also paying for it now with what I'm going through with my, personal and body issues and things of that nature. And like I said, it's an ongoing battle, but I'll never force my son to play. And if he wants to play at a level that he's comfortable playing at, then I'll support him. And if he wants to quit, I'll support him. But like, I'll never, give him that push where you got to do this, you have to do that, because I was never raised like that. And it was never imposed on me to play like that. So like I said, he's going back to play this year. He'll be an Atom, I think, this year. And if he likes it, he likes it. If he doesn't, he's a great soccer player. So I'd rather him play soccer and, not go through what I did. So
at least then grandma can stay and watch the games.
Yeah, for sure. And grandma likes that. Yeah. It's like I said, it's the things that with the hockey players go through back in the 90s and, to go through the now, I think that, you'll find a lot of players like myself that are going through some hard times. And like you said, it's important for us to speak about it and have the courage to come out and talk about things that you're going through. And like I said, it's probably been some of the hardest things in my life. I fought a lot of big, tough people. I fought a lot of things. I was heavy into alcohol when I was playing in the League North American to hide the pain and painkillers and things of that nature. And I think it's, like with Carey Price, what he's done and things of that nature, people coming out and, the best thing that I love is it's okay not to be okay. And it's such a cliche, but as long as people know that there's help out there and things of that nature, I think, and especially for junior kids nowadays in the OHL that have pressure playing in the OHL and are scared to, back when I played, you didn't want to say you're scared to be away from your mom and dad. You didn't want to be that guy to say that. But looking back on it now, I wish sometimes I remember crying sometimes in my room in Niagara because I didn't want to be there, but I wanted to play. I missed my mom and dad and I missed my buddies and stuff like that, but I wanted to play the game. So I think if we realize where the hockey game is evolved to now, and they're evolved to, and know that, for the junior kids, it's okay to speak out or to come out and say something's not right with you. And I think that's pretty important. And again, I'm happy the OHL is doing stuff like that now. And I think that's probably the most important thing with the OHL now is that they can help these young kids if they have problems in their life, because there's so many things that we see on the ice that we don't see off the ice. And it's such a struggle for some of these kids, because I know I went through it. And being away from home, like I said, being a kid from Coburg, going to Niagara, big town, big city, big lights, you get lost in a lot of things and you forget what, your life is about. And like I said, I've seen some stories of what's gone on with some of the kids. And like I said, it's a real problem in the OHL and even midget and stuff like that, where things are going on that people need an avenue to talk. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would like to bring out is I wish I would have talked more when I played.
I'm so glad you're sharing that story and that message, Jason. It is incredibly important, and I appreciate so much your honesty on it and your willingness to deliver it. I'm going to do just the one more question here, but it's tied into what Chris was just asking and what you've talked about, because you've been honest, you've been blunt about how you're feeling today and the way you played the game contributed to that. And I've wondered, looking back now, would you do it differently?
I get that question all the time. My brother asks me every time I talk to my brother. He's you know what, I don't think I would, because the life I lived was like a rock star. Like, it was coming from a small town. I didn't expect anything. And, I worked for everything I had. Like I said, my mom worked at Kraft General Foods in Coburg for 45 years. My dad worked at the plant in Porto for 35 years. We didn't have the big splashy houses, big cars, anything that. We worked hard, and I saw that with my mom and dad. And like I said, I didn't expect anything of what I received. And like I said, someone was looking out for me. I was fortunate enough to play the game that I loved and play 1,000 games and play in Europe and play in the United States and play in the best junior league in the world in the OHL and have so many friends that I still talk to now. And like I said, would I change some things? I guess the best question would be, from what I know now to what I didn't know with the concussions and the things that are going on, like maybe a little bit, but I don't think it would change my game that much because, like I said, I love the role I played.
Real quick, we kept you too long, but
No,
we
okay.
appreciate you coming on. Just pub your hockey program you got going on right now.
Well, I'm with Wingman Sports, Lee Umansky in Newmarket there. He sells custom gloves, jerseys and stuff like that. And I obviously playing the game for many years. I know a couple people and I throw him his way. And he's the one that did the toques for Cormac. And, he has a great business going there. And like I said, people need stuff, definitely look him up at Wingman Sports in Newmarket or, just email me and I can put you in contact with him. But like I said, he's a great guy. He has a great business and great quality stuff for sure.
I'm so glad we were able to make this connection and that you were willing to come on the podcast. Thanks a million for doing this.
Well, again, it's my pleasure. And like I said, I hope I bring awareness to some of the kids. I know you're with Kitchener that ever need help. And like I said, if you want to throw my email out there for anyone that needs to talk about anything, I'm not a professional in any means, but I went through it. And maybe if, helping one person, I would love to. But like I said, it's my pleasure to come on with you guys. And maybe one day we can meet for sure.
What's your email, Jason, just for our audio listeners?
Yeah, it's the jclarke991@gmail.com. So it's the letter J CLARKE 991@gmail.com. Like I said, if you need to talk about anything and it goes out to any players in Kitchener, wherever it may be, I would love to talk about experiences and if we can do anything, help moving forward for sure.
He answers those emails, by the way, because our first email exchange came on a Friday night after a game in Kitchener when I was on a bus to Niagara Falls of all places. And it was like 11:30 and we're going back and forth setting this up. So
I answer my emails. Like I said, that's my biggest pet peeve. If someone sends me an email and I don't respond to the same thing, I don't like it. So for sure, I'll respond to anything. But like I said, I'm so happy on you, and I'll be in Toronto this summer in Niagara Falls. I'm going to take my family. So maybe if I'm in the area, we'll pop in and we'll have some lunch or something.
Look forward to that. Thanks a million for doing this.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why the hell is Farwell standing here by himself after the podcast with Jason Clarke just came to an end? Well, as always, with the OHL Stories podcast, there is method to the madness. And in this particular case, the method to the madness is to introduce ever so briefly the other Jason Clarke. It's a funny story. You heard us allude to it with the interview you just heard with Jason Clarke of the Niagara Falls Thunder. But it seems as though when we were trying to, I'll just own it. When I was trying to arrange that interview with Jason Clarke of the Niagara Falls Thunder, I found a different Jason Clarke who I thought was the Jason Clarke that played for the Niagara Falls Thunder. Turns out that was not the case. This Jason Clarke, who you're about to hear from, and is now coaching in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League in Acadie-Bathurst. So, I mean, who wouldn't think that this is the same guy that went from Major Junior into Tier 2 with Carleton Place Canadians and owned the team and had tremendous success with the team, and then graduated on from there and moved on into the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. It all seemed to be adding up as you followed the trajectory of a typical hockey career. But no, it was a completely different Jason Clarke. But this Jason Clarke, who you are about to hear from, not only said this sort of thing, and we'll get into it at the beginning of the conversation, this sort of thing has happened before, just like the other Jason Clarke just said, but this is like sitting in on a coach's clinic. So this Jason Clarke did not play for the Niagara Falls Thunder. In fact, he didn't play at all in the Ontario Hockey League, played a little bit for the Kingston Voyagers and others, but then moved on to coaching and managing and is now coaching in Major Junior in the Quebec League. Sit back, have a little chuckle at my expense, and enjoy this virtual coaches clinic with the other Jason Clarke. I feel like I have to start, Jason, with kind of how you and I started, which was by email. And when we got a few emails in, I realized that I was not talking to the Jason Clarke I originally thought I was talking to. And you took it like the great sport that you are and said it's not the first time that's happened to you in your hockey career.
No, it's not the first one. So there's lots of Jason Clarkes out there that have played hockey with the E, without the E, but I have the E. So that means I paid my taxes. My family paid their taxes back in England and in At least I've got good. At least my family's got good credit, apparently.
That is hilarious. Now, when I look back on your career, it wasn't long from the end of playing to the beginning of coaching, and I wondered if that was always a part of your plan in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I always really enjoyed the academic part of hockey all the time, and the interactions with the coaching staff. I mean, I always thought that I had a pretty good. Obviously I had a lot better mind than I did than playing, but so I always knew that I would always get into coaching. I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed like I said, the academic part. I really enjoyed the fact that some of the coaches that I played for in my time had a big impact on who I am as a person, and I've always been thankful for that. So it's kind of something that I thought that it was kind of my time and my turn to kind of give back to the guys that are playing at the junior level. So it's a great age. Obviously, you're kids, and they're you can have a huge impact on them as people and as players at that specific time in their age. It's a very influential time of their life, and like I said, I had some really good coaches that helped me along, and I thought it'd be great to be able to give back as well.
So speaking of that academic side of the game, I'm quite fascinated by it. I never played at any high level at all. I broadcast in major junior now, and that's the extent of it. But you were 30 years ago when you were playing the game. Obviously, you've had to evolve even that academic side of things to make it applicable to the modern hockey player. How do you do that? What's the evolution been like for you?
Well, I think the one thing is it's there's no university or high school or college for hockey, right? So you just got to be able to have a little bit of initiative, and self-educate, and have a good circle of people, and make sure that you're always staying in the times with things. So I think being able to get a good circle of hockey knowledge from people that you've met along the way, has been a huge key to my success. But leaning on going to coaches clinics, the NHL draft, they've always got coaches clinics there. You mean you're always online with the NHL coaches mentor that they've done over the last 2 years during COVID. You mean going to the Roger Nielsen's coaching clinics and the coaches site, and I think that's the big thing that's allowed me to kind of stay with the times, and obviously watching hockey as well too. My wife doesn't really get me watching so much hockey at home, but it takes me, it takes a regular person. They enjoy watching the game, but I watch it more as trying to critique and stopping and video and rewinding and just trying to catch little plays that they're using, and it's just about always trying to get better every day. And I think that obviously there's lots of ways of doing that with there's Instat, there's all different types of avenues for coaches like myself to continue to evolve and continue to get better and self-educate themselves.
When you look at coaches in the pro ranks today, Jason, who stands out to you as someone whose systems you might admire?
I think there's lots of different coaches. I think the one thing with coaching is that I think you have to kind of be who you are. You got to be yourself. So I like to kind of steal ideas from different from different coaches. There's so many good coaches out there right now. You take a look at Rod Brindamore, you take a look at Sheldon Keefe, you take a look at Andre Burnett, what he's doing in Florida, John Cooper. There's just so many different things that you can pull from every coach and kind of add them to your toolbox, right? So I think the great thing about watching lots of hockey and being involved all the time is that you're able to kind of steal ideas from everybody and kind of bring them into your core mentality, culture of the team you're coaching.
I know that you're in part of embarking on a new chapter here in the queue right now, but we can't have a conversation with Jason Clarke without talking about the Carleton Place Canadians, owner, general manager, coach, and what that, like, the tremendous run of success you had there. To what do you attribute that incredible success with the Carleton Place Canadians?
Well, first and foremost, it goes to obviously my family being able to raise my kids in my hometown, and being able to have the support from the community. I mean, without the volunteers that we had and without the sponsors, financially supporting, helping financially support the team, I would not be where I am today. I mean, family and friends and sponsors and our fan base have been just so important to the culture and Carleton Place that we created. It was like one big family, and then obviously my staff and the volunteers that we had in Carleton Place. We were together for 13 years. We started the franchise. We had the same volunteers, the same coaching staff, same everybody. Nothing changed the whole time because we really enjoyed each other's time. I think we were obviously all on the same page when it came to, the culture that we wanted to create, how we wanted to be able to help the kids grow as people and as players. And, we all kind of had the same values and morals all set in the right place. And without the surrounding people that I had with me, I would never be where I am today. That's for sure.
You kind of touched on it twice now already, growing as people and as players. Do you see those two elements as requirements at this level of hockey, that you're going to grow not just the athlete, but the human too?
I think it's really important to me is that if you're living your life the right way away from the rink, it's all be um, focused and doing things the right way when you get to the rink. So what I mean by that is just, eating right, sleeping right, going to school, being a good teammate, being a good brother, being a good like with having a good relationship. The big thing is that if you just continue to do things the right way all the time, when you get to the rink, it's really easy to be able to concentrate on getting better at something that you really enjoy. But anytime that you're having to look over your shoulder all the time and you're not being able, you're not doing things the right way, and you're cutting corners, in your regular life, then the same thing happens in the game of hockey to me. And all those things translate and correlate together. You mean, if you're doing things the right way away from the rink, then it makes a lot easier to do things the right way at the rink. And I think again, like we've talked about, the age group from 16 to 20. It's a very influential. Like, you can have a big influential part of their growth as people. And honestly, we spend more coaches. We spend more time with the kids than they do with their own parents from their career from 16 to 20. So I mean, we're with them for 8 or 9 months of the year, and their parents season only with their parents and family for 3 or 4 months of the year. So it's really important that we create a stable environment, ability. But you mean, it's on the players as well too. But you got to be able to create that environment in order for them to and to order to understand that the way they do things away from the rink is going to reflect how they do things at the rink. So it's a two-way street. You mean, every relationship's got to be a two-way street, and anytime it becomes a one-way street, then that's when things kind of break down. So I think that's what's really important for a hockey player is just being able to do things the right way at the rink and obviously away from the rink.
When you look back at your years as a player in the early 90s, Smiths Falls, Kingston, Ajax, were you the kind of player that you're talking about wanting to have today, that you're coaching and teaching today away from the rink? Did that evolve in you as a player? What was Jason Clarke, the hockey player, like?
Well, I was the exact opposite. That's why I'm trying to show them that if you don't do things the right way, I mean, you're going to be old and decrepit like I am at 48, and not have an NHL career or pro career to talk about. So I mean, I was a late bloomer in hockey, and I was a late bloomer in life, and thank God that I met my beautiful wife. And I think she did more of babysitting for me, where for the first 5 years, helping me grow as a person than being married to somebody. So I mean, I just try and take all my learning experiences in life and just trying to relate it to the players and saying, hey, if this is the way you do things, this is what could happen, and this is the way you do things the right way, this is what could happen. So I think having the life experiences that I've had. I mean, I've always done things kind of the hard way in my life. So things have always kind of turned out for me. But I'm a late bloomer in life and as a hockey player. So I think just taking the life lessons that I have and relate them to the players. And you just like raising your own kids. I mean, you just don't want to see your kids make the same mistakes as you did. And I'm just trying to relate that message to the players that I'm coaching, is saying, hey, look at, if you do things the right way, this right, and if you do things the wrong way, this is definitely what's going to happen. So I think it's always nice hearing it from somebody else other than your parents, right? So I think that's what's most important.
So was there a light bulb moment for you, Jason, anywhere along the path, or what sorts of life experiences are you drawing on to pass on to the players?
I think there was a light bulb experience for me with Mr. Bob McLaren when I was playing in St. Catharines, and I went to Brock University and was let go for some bad off ice issues, and Bob kind of got a hold of me as a 20-year-old and said, hey, you want to what? I mean, you can continue to live your life this way and always have chaos in your life and blame everybody else, or you can get up early in the morning and brush your teeth and look at yourself in the mirror and think good things and have positive energy and feel good about yourself. And I think that was was a turning moment in my life, and it was in a parking lot at Brock University, and he totally changed my life. I mean, it would have been nice to have him at 16 years old rather than 20, but things happen for a reason, and I'm just trying to use those experiences in coaching and trying to make sure that the players that I'm with that understand that, hey, I didn't do things the right way for a lot of years of my life, and there was a light bulb moment for me, and I'm just trying to be that light bulb moment for all the players that I'm playing for. So that are playing for me. So it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I've really enjoyed my coaching career so far. It has its up and downs, but you want to what the positives certainly outweigh the negatives every day, and I just really enjoy working with this age group.
Are you sure about ups and downs? Because I looked at the records, Clarky. It doesn't look like there have been many downs in your coaching career. Success seems to find its way to you.
Yeah, but you mean, winning is one thing for us, and we did a lot of winning, but I think one of the things is that we felt very obliged as an organization is making sure the players were getting a good education, and we were doing the right things in order to move kids on to Division 1. And I mean, there were some tough days on maybe not getting the player the right deal and what we thought he could get, or maybe some players leaving our organization that maybe underachieved, that we thought could be a little bit better. But I mean, it is, I think all things happen for a reason in life. I mean, there's a plan for everybody, and you just got to get up every single day and work through it and put in a good effort in life every day. And if you do that, then good things will happen to good people. So you're gonna have your ups and you're gonna have your downs, and it's been a great way to make a living, to be honest with you. I feel very fortunate, very lucky to do what I do and continue to work hard. So my luck continues of being able to do what I do for a living. So I really enjoy it.
They say luck is the residue of hard work.
That's what they say. I mean, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so I gotta work twice as hard as everybody else. That's for sure. I know that and understand that. That's probably one of my best characteristics of as a person, is my work ethic. And like my wife says, probably one of my worst characteristics there's one of my worst is my wonderful patience that I have. So I'm always reminded of that. So it's something that I continue to work on every day. I'm 48 years old and I'm still working on it. I'm sure she'll tell me till I'm 68. Yeah.
I want to go back half a step to Bob McLaren, and forgive me because I didn't know him well. Is he still with us?
Absolutely.
Good.
Bob's a retired firefighter in St. Catharines, and he was a huge integral part to the St. Catharines Junior B Falcons for many years. And that's just was a very important time in my life as a 20-year-old playing in that organization and being able to play for Bob. It was a great experience, and to this day we're still in contact. And our second last Carleton Place, I had him come in as a special guest and present a couple awards to our players, and kind of told them my story of how Bob changed my life, and we're still very close to this day.
It's great to hear. And then back to Carleton Place. You talk about the 13 special years there, obviously hometown, all that success. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been to make the decision that you did and take the leap that you did, moving on to major junior and joining coaching staffs in the QMJHL. How difficult was that decision for you and the family?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an easy decision, but I had opportunities through about 4 or 5 years into owning the team to move. I thought it was really important that I wasn't a part-time dad, and I wanted to stay at home, and my wife and I were all on board in that, and we discussed that once the boys were all gone and starting their own lives and doing their own things, and all three of our children are doing very well. My daughter works for National Defense, and my middle boy Nicholas is in the military, and my youngest guy is a carpenter now and working full time. So it was just time for us to have a new chapter and for me to be able to concentrate on getting the next level. I've always wanted to try and coach at the highest level, and I've had the support of my community in Carleton Place in order for us to have the franchise we've had. But more importantly, I've had the support of all three of my kids and my wife, which is more important than anything else. And they're really happy that I'm following my dream of trying to coach at the highest level, and I couldn't be more grateful.
I do obviously want to talk about being with Acadie-Bathurst right now, but you kind of read my mind a little bit, so I'm going to jump in the timeline, so to speak. I got the impression from reading up on you a little bit that highest level, being perhaps the National Hockey League, is where you would like to. I know you're focused on the job now and you're doing a great job, but ultimately I get the sense that's where you'd like to end up.
You want to what? It's for me. It's like it's just a higher level. I mean, I always wanted to get to the highest level, and from major junior or from tier 2 junior A, it's major junior, and I think for me now it's just trying to get better. And I think myself being able to work with Sly Couture, who's got 20 years experience. He's won multiple Memorial Cups and championships, and being able to work with him every day, I'm just continuing to get better. I mean, as a coach and growing as a person. And I think that's kind of what my focus is just trying to get better every day. I mean, I'm certainly not perfect at all, and let my players know that. The only thing I ask my players is to make sure they don't tell my wife that. That's all. So I want to be able to make sure that and that we just have to have a good relationship. And I think if our team continues to have a really good relationship, and it's a two-way street between the coaching staff and the players, then the players are going to continue to grow. But I'm also going to be able to continue to grow as a coach, and I still got lots to learn. I'm only about 33, 34 games into my major junior career, and it's been going well so far. But we got a great coaching staff, and let's face it. You mean good players make coaches look good, and we got a lot of really good players in our team. So my job has been is I wouldn't say it's been easy, but it's been a good situation for me to walk into for my first coaching gig.
How's your French? Was there any challenge with the language barrier?
There was a little bit of a challenge with the language barrier, but I've been doing my due diligence. I do 5 to 10 minutes of Google work there on Duolingo, and I can get to the restaurants and order some food, and still not comfortable with having a full conversation yet, but at least I'll never go starving. That's for sure.
I had the opposite conversation with Andre Tourigny a couple of years ago when he came into the Ontario Hockey League with Ottawa. It was his English that needed help, and he talked about it early in his career as well, how the French players had to help him learn English as a coach. Oh, did I lose you there? Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still with you. Yeah,
okay, good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, Andre, I wish my French was as good as Andre's English. That's for sure. So if anyone's ever been able to the pleasure to meet Andre, is just a fantastic guy, and that's one thing he's really worked on is English. I mean, we had breakfast a couple times in the summertime before he took off to Phoenix, and his English is just unbelievable. And what an energetic guy, and just a nice guy to be able to talk to and talk hockey. And you know, and get knowledge from, and get some ideas from. And, you know, I've really been able to implement some of the things that him and I have talked to, just on a daily basis schedule, and how they communicate as a coaching staff, and schedules and everything else. I mean, 67s were, you know, a pillar in the OHL, the 3 years he was there. And, you know, you know, steal ideas from a first class organization. So I brought a lot of those, you know, little small things of scheduling, and some culture ideas from James, and from Andre, and I've kind of brought it into Bathurst here.
When you mentioned the Memorial Cup earlier, I couldn't help but think that obviously with the cup being hosted in the Q in St. John's this year, St. John, pardon me, there's got to be a little bit of excitement around the fact that there will be a second entry from the Q. What's the buzz like as the regular season's coming to an end?
I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in this league. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's a battle every day to be able just to get 2 points in this league. And the schedule, it's been really tough, and the COVID schedule has really kind of caught up to a lot of the teams in our league, you know, with injuries and sickness and everything else. I mean, there's just so many good teams in this league. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? You know, playoffs are a whole different animal. So we've always talked about it with us. I mean, it's you know, the regular season is an audition for, you know, for the big Broadway play. So you mean, our audition's going well, but we still got a things that we need to be able to make sure that we nip in the bud in order for us to be ready for, you know, for the big play. So I think that's what we're focused on. And you know, it's just a day-to-day process that we're really concentrating on right now.
How do you like the travel? I know that here in Kitchener, we get spoiled quite a bit. We talk about our big long road trips up to Sault Ste. Marie, which you only have to do twice a year. It's pretty easy, certainly to other leagues, the West and the Q. How do you like it out there?
Well, it's interesting. My first an assistant coach of Shawinigan was an overnight 16-hour bus ride out to Cape Breton, so that was interesting. And then my last road trip was a 19-hour bus ride home in a snowstorm from Val-d'Or. So it's a little bit different than the big long 2-hour bus trips in the CCHL. But you want to know what? It's all a part of the business. You mean, you get a lot done, actually, to be honest with you. You get a lot of video done. You get to catch up with a lot of people, you know, that you haven't talked to. And I use my time wisely when we're doing those trips. You mean, just being able to catch up with hockey guys that you might not be able to talk to on a regular basis, and, you know, just staying in touch with everybody. I think it's really important. Networking is really important in this small hockey community. And that's something that I kind of, on those road trips, are using my time wisely. That's for sure.
You've been a part of this game now, Jason, for 3 decades or so. How do you feel about the state of our game generally today compared to perhaps where it was when you were playing?
You mean, the skill level is off the charts. You mean, the stuff that these kids can do nowadays it just blows my mind, to be honest with you. You kind of sit back sometimes, the coaching staff and I look at each other on the bench just going like, did he just do that? Or like, are you serious? Like, that just happened, right? I mean, I think the speed, I think the skill is just unbelievable. The kids are in such good shape as well too, and, you know, they really take care of their bodies, and nutrition, and their workouts are in much better shape than when I played, that's for sure. But I mean, I'd like to see the game a little bit more physical at times. You mean, I know the game, you know, ramps up a little bit in the playoffs, but same thing in the NHL. You mean, I like to see the game be a little bit more physical, but the skill level to me is just unbelievable.
You find yourself at this point of the season still chasing down first place in the division. Is that sort of the micro goal before whatever might happen down the road into the postseason and perhaps even a Memorial Cup?
I think the big thing for us is that we're just going on a daily process right now, trying to get better every day, and trying to make sure that guys are staying healthy. And, you know, we're giving them time off when they need time off. We're doing a lot of yoga right now, and just doing a lot of video. You mean, you don't never want to get too far ahead of yourself. We just need to continue to know and understand that there's a process, you know, during our audition here during the regular season, and that we just need to understand that that we're getting that 1 or 2% better every day. You know, other teams are resting, and we need to be getting better on those days off. So I think that's kind of what our focus is right now.
Yoga and video, two things that I'm thinking were not too much a part of your games or your times when you were playing the game.
No, no, there was zero yoga back when I played. That's for sure. We were lucky to even get a stretch in. We just show up for warm up, and that would be it. So
that part of the game and the evolution there absolutely blows my mind. When I see, even just, you talked about nutrition earlier and how fit these guys all are, but when I watch them now, even away from the games and everything that goes into the process of getting ready for a game and all the video work and everything else, I'm absolutely blown away. It's almost a full-time job. It really is, even at this level.
oh, it is. I mean, these kids are, for instance, our schedule starts at 7:30 in the morning, and we do video at 7:45 every day. Could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes. We practice for an hour. And then we've got a full-time teaching staff right at the rink, so we got our own classroom. So we've got 3 full-time teachers that come in and do all the teaching for our guys, and then we're back on the ice for individual skills. I mean, during obviously the busy times, we're not doing 2-a-days, but when the first time I arrived here in November to all the way to December, we were doing 2-a-days, getting individual skills in and practices and workouts. So it's a really, really busy day for those guys. But I mean, if they want to be able to play at the next level, this is something that they've got to do. They got to put the time in, and also too is time management skills. I mean, you got to be able to manage your time. It's the biggest thing that these kids are going to learn from the time they're 16 to 20 is time management skills. And if you don't have good time management skills by the time you're done playing major junior hockey, well, there's something wrong with you, that's for sure. So I mean, we've got to prepare and for CIS and for schooling and everything else, and time management skills is the biggest thing they're going to learn when they're here.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been a real treat for me to have the opportunity to pick the brain of a coach that's been so successful for so many years. And you were a great sport in the Jason Clarke mix-up that allowed this to happen. So thanks a million for joining me. And I hope we can keep in touch and have more chats down the road.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on the broadcast, and I really enjoyed myself here. And just want to wish you best of luck going down, and I appreciate you having me on. I really enjoyed myself.